Well, good day, folks. How's things going today? I'm back to do another discussion on The Secret by Byron Price. Today, I'm talking about the garden goyle, otherwise known as the horror cultus. The horror cultus, otherwise known as the garden goyle. So, I'm on page 78 and 79 in the book, and I'm trying to figure out exactly what we're trying to reference here with the garden goyle. I'm having kind of a hard time picking up any real clues out of the garden goyle because the features don't actually look like a real person. And I think there's a lot of superimposed stuff in this. There appears to be a face in the image on page 79 towards the right hand side. Kind of looks like Fidel Castro with his face stretched, if you will. Um, the hand is in the shape of what appears to be an M. And if this was like later, I would say we're talking about the Monster Energy drink. But I think that maybe that fingers are in the shape of Monsanto, to do with Monsanto Company. And I'm going to do that because we just previously discussed um, the soap, the scrub up of us, and the soaps and that kind of thing. And I know that in 1946, Monsanto developed and marketed all laundry detergent, at which they sold to the Lever brothers in 1957. And so part of Monsanto's history has to do with making, a profitable endeavor into soap and laundry detergent. And so I'm going to say that's my jumping off point for Monsanto. And so if you look at Monsanto Company, it's basically a chemical company. It was started in 1901 in St. Louis, Missouri as a chemical company. The founder was John Francis Queeny, and he named the business after his wife's maiden name, his wife being Olga Mendez Monsanto. Um, and she is again from the Sephardic Jewish Monsanto family. So I like the fact that I'm kind of on top of that. John Francis Queeny was a businessman in St. Louis. He was born in Chicago, Illinois, obviously, and he attended school for 6 years until the Great Chicago Fire forced him to seek full-time employment at age 12. Uh, and he moved to St. Louis in 1897 to work for Meyer Brothers Drug Company. That was one of the largest wholesale pharmaceutical companies at the time. Uh, they purchased a sulfur refinery, and then he founded the Monsanto Chemical Works, and he began making saccharin. So this whole idea of artificial sweeteners, artificial sugars, maybe what the theme of this is actually talking about. Um, Queenie retired and was succeeded by his son Edgar. Uh, it became the largest producer of engineered crops by the 1970s. And so that's why I think that these engineered crops, I don't know, these crops that don't look normal, if you will, is probably the genesis. And if you look at this picture of John Francis Queeny, and then you go look at the image figure on page 79, you will look at the Queenie's face, and then you will look at this face that I swear is in this image, and you will come to the conclusion that, yep, that's John Francis Queeny that's in the, I don't know, it's the lower half of the picture. It's under the elbow of the M, if you will, on page 79. And so I'm pretty sure that this image has to do with Monsanto. It has to do with the engineered crops. That was the genesis here of this one, and it spawns out of the previous story that was about makers of soap. The mention of Ohio and Miami, I know that in Florida, Monsanto used to sponsor a golf tournament, and maybe that's the relationship there. Um, the other possibility is that the Omaha connection has to do with the Warren Buffett, and Warren Buffett sponsors this thing called the World Food Prize. And I don't know when he started sponsoring the World Food Prize, but it's basically the Norman Borlaug Award. And Norman Borlaug is the guy that basically brought hybrid technology uh, to the third world and is credited for saving billions of people around the world because of the fact that he had introduced the hybrid technologies. And Borlaug, he's won the Nobel Peace Prize, the Presidential Freedom, and the Congressional Medal of Honor, and all these things like that. He immigrated to Dane County, Wisconsin, and so uh, he was a wrestler at the University of Minnesota. Um, I think I might be getting a little bit too far off track with the information about Norman Borlaug, but he from 1942 to 44, he was a microbiologist at DuPont in Wilmington, Delaware, and so and on he enlisted in the military, and he then started doing research for the United States Armed Forces, etc. Uh, and so he basically developed. His history is actually pretty interesting, but so he did some wheat research and developed some strains of wheat. He had a joint venture with the Rockefeller Foundation. In 1944. That kind of ties you into the Rockefeller connection, and so the World Food Prize, the Green Revolution. In 1963, the Rockefeller Foundation and the Mexican government sent Borlaug and Dr. Robert Glenn Anderson to India to continue his work. He went over there. That might be the reference that we have to the Serengeti, if you will. Although that's Africa, I guess. But anyway, he may have done research in that area as well. Uh, but so I think that that's what this one is kind of focusing on. But I'm pretty sure, and I think that the main reference here is to Monsanto. Um, uh, Eventually, Borlaug ended up living in Dallas. So um, that might be the Omaha connection to the World Food Prize that sponsored by Warren Buffett, and that would be your Omaha connection. But I think that's what this centers around. And so I appreciate you turning in today and listening to the presentation here on the Garden Goyle. My shorter research on this could lead you to the idea of these gardens, and Burpee has been putting out a catalog for years and years, and so is Gurney. And so if you want to take this back to the home gardening idea, you could start looking at Charles Gurney, and then also looking at Burpee, the seed companies that have been around for years. But I really think that M and that face looks definitely like Monsanto, and that's what the authors were aiming at here. So I'll be back in a few to talk about the Saucer's Apprentices, which I have narrowed these two people down to who they actually are, Julia Child and James Beard. Hey, Joellen Trilling, how is it that you made a doll that looked just like Joellen? Or Joellen, how did you make a doll that looked just like Julia Child? And another one that looked like James Beard. I must admit, your dolls are very good when you can recognize exactly who they are. The Garden Goyle, not so much. Haven't been able to figure that one out, but I'll be back and talk about the Saucer's Apprentices. the Cuisinart Gradia Artis, which I have gotten figured out pretty darn well. All right, thanks so much for joining me.